You guys have to wake up at 5 in the morning, do 1,000 push-ups, run 10 miles. Welcome back to my channel, you guys. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing the top 5 things I do in order to stay productive. Now, before we get into this video, I'd really appreciate it if you guys subscribed. We're on the road to 600 subscribers, and we just hit 500 subscribers. So once again, I really appreciate that. Also, if this video taught you something new, go ahead and drop a like. I really appreciate it. Also, feel free to drop a comment. I respond to all my comments. Okay, so the way I'm going to be listing out these productivity tips that I use is going to be basically from the least best all the way to the best. So be sure to stay till the end because the last productivity tip helps me out the most. All right, so for productivity tip number 1 is going to be exercise. So exercise, I try to exercise every morning, and you guys are probably thinking, how is that possible? He has so much going on. How does he have time to exercise, go to school, make videos? Well, it's because I try to exercise maybe like 20 or 30 minutes at a time. If I really want to, put on muscle, I don't know if you guys see my transformation, but I might make a video on that later. I try to exercise maybe 20, 30 minutes, usually an hour or so, but I never really exercise more than an hour. That's just because your body doesn't really do well under a lot of exercise, especially all in one time. It just personally makes me way too tired throughout the day. So I try to just exercise for that 20, 30, 1 hour window in order to increase my levels of serotonin, increase my heart rate, basically make me, feel good and get prepared for the day. Also, the benefit of exercise is it actually increases your energy levels. I think I mentioned this on one of my previous videos, but as you exercise, you actually increase your mitochondria in your cells. As you guys know, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. If you have higher levels of mitochondria in each of your cells, it means you're going to increase your energy levels. If you have more mitochondria, have more energy, and then you can use that excess energy in order to put it to your work. The second productivity tip that I use, I'm pretty sure everyone does this, is go to sleep, right? We humans, we need to go to sleep. A lot of people try to brag and say, oh, I only got a few hours of sleep last night. And I always try to tell people, like, if you go to sleep, try to sleep really consistently. Try to sleep, 8 hours every single time. Every single night, depending on what you do, right? Me personally, I try to get more sleep. So I know, doctors recommend 8 hours, but I really try to aim for around 9 hours of sleep. That's just because, for me, I personally feel better. I know some people that might only need around 7 hours, but for me, I need around 9 hours of sleep in order to feel productive. There's just, I can honestly go on and on about this benefits of sleep. You feel better while you sleep. It's your body's way of basically releasing toxins that are in your body, helps your mind reset. And another thing about sleep is it actually matters about how deep you sleep compared to how many hours you sleep, right? Because there are some people that could be laying in bed, tossing and turning for 10, 12 hours. But if they're not getting a deep level of sleep, then it really doesn't matter. So I believe doctors recommend you need around 150 minutes of REM sleep. I'm pretty sure that's the deepest sleep stage. But yeah, so I personally like to sleep around 9 hours a night, and I always try to wake up at the same time and go to sleep at the same time as well. All right, so the next productivity tip that I use is I use stimulant windows. So what I mean by that is throughout the day, I'm pretty sure everyone does this as well. People drink coffee, right? However, when I do take stimulants like caffeine, I try to not overdo them and instead use them when necessary. For example, if I'm feeling very tired in the morning, that's when I'll drink coffee. And I think Andrew Huberman or someone out there said that you should wait around 90 minutes after you wake up in order to consume caffeine, which is kind of the rule that I stick to. But I only drink caffeine or consume caffeine if I'm tired. If I wake up and I'm feeling just fine, then I just won't consume caffeine because there's really no benefit to it. Because what caffeine does is it doesn't give you more energy. Instead, it minimizes tiredness. So if you wake up and you don't feel tired, there's really almost no benefit of drinking caffeine. You're basically just drinking caffeine to increase your tolerance to the caffeine. So there really is just no point. So if you're not feeling tired, then caffeine, you're not going to feel anything. There would be no benefit of it. In addition to caffeine, I also take nicotine, and I don't smoke nicotine. I use it sometimes in a sense of a chew. And I don't chew it a lot. Like I said, I only chew it sometimes. And the benefit of nicotine compared to caffeine is it has a very short half-time life, which basically means that when you consume it, it leaves your system pretty fast. I believe the half-life of nicotine is only around 2 hours. So you'll get that, rush to, lock in on your work for about, 20, 30 minutes or so. And then after that, only around 2 hours later, you're going to feel basically like normal again. So nicotine is really nice because you can always just, pop in a chew when you're feeling really tired during the afternoon and get work done, which is usually what I do only if I'm feeling really tired. If I'm not feeling tired, then I'm just not going to use it because, like I said, I don't want to build tolerances to nicotine, caffeine, or any stimulants. just because there's just no benefit of that. And I only really use them in order to increase energy or get things done. All right, so tip number 4 for my productivity is being comfortable. Now, this is a thing that I really started to focus on, especially later. Especially, I tried out so many things, right? And I looked online, and I always see these videos about people setting up, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 desk setups. And actually, that was one of my first videos on YouTube. And I was thinking, hey, what if I just spend thousands of dollars on a desk setup in order to help me be more productive? Well, that's just a waste, because what I learned is you want to be comfortable. It doesn't matter how much money you put into your equipment. It doesn't matter, what you do. Spend money on productivity if you're not comfortable. So what I personally do is I have my laptop here, and that's really all I need. I just need a laptop, a mouse, and then I actually just use a second screen in order to get work done. So I have 2 screens, which helps me a lot personally. But that's really all I need. And I really like to lay down while I work. From sitting too much, there's millions of studies out there that say sitting for too long is associated with CVD, all types of just, bad things, back pain. It's just sitting is really good for you, and it's just not natural. So when I do tend to work and I need to get some work done, I always try to be as comfortable as possible. If that means that my body is saying, hey, you need to go for a walk, I have a treadmill over here. I'll walk on my treadmill. So whatever my body is feeling, whatever it takes in order to, get a task done, and I feel that I'm comfortable, that's how I'm gonna do it, right? But like I said, personally, I use my laptop, I have my iPad, and I have my mouse, and I'll just lay on my bed, on my computer, on my lap, and my laptop either to the left or the right of me, and I'll just get work done that way. And that's how I get as much work done as possible. That's how I'm comfortable. And so that just comes with a lot of experimentation on how you want to get work done. But another tip, just gonna wrap up this one, just be as comfortable as possible when you're doing your work. All right, so for the final tip, productive as possible, that I use is my environment. So when I get work done, I like to be in a pristine environment. I learned this from Robin Sharma, one of my favorite authors out there. He actually released the book called The 5 a.m. Club. And a lot of the stuff in that book I try to implement in my life. And one of the protocols that he has in his book is your environment needs to stay pristine. And basically what I do to ensure that my environment is pristine is I like to work in a really quiet environment. Basically right now in my apartment, I have no noise. There's nothing going on. It's super dull. It's super boring. There's really nothing around me that can distract me, right? So honestly, that thing alone, being in an environment that helps boost my productivity has honestly worked wonders for me. There's another book that I haven't completed yet, but I'm also reading. It's called Flow. Basically in that book, you want to focus, you want to get as much work done when your body's in that flow state. And being in an environment where it's quiet, there's not a lot of distractions, helps you get into that flow state and stay in that flow state. Plus tip is, when you're in that locked in state, try to stay in that state as long as possible. I know it's difficult. I know nowadays, you always have notifications on your phone popping up and stuff like that. But honestly, when I'm in that flow state, I don't do anything but work. And I try to stay in that state as long as possible until, something happens, and then, I got to take a break or whatever. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the video today. I hope these 5 tips have helped you guys out a lot. Personally, these are what I use every single day and kind of the principles I stick to in order to stay as productive as possible. And if you got this far into the video, I really appreciate it. Also, if this video gets up to 4 likes, I'll make another video talking about how to actually get tasks done in the most efficient way as possible. So if you're interested in that, like I said, get this video up to 4 likes. I really appreciate you guys getting this far into this video. And until next time.